It's a bad day for Will Wade haters. We'll explain. Locked on LSU. Here we go.
You are Locked On LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Well, there are a lot of people who love to hate Will Wade. He's a villain in college basketball. Right, wrong, indifferent, that's the truth. From the moment he was on that federal wiretap, there were a lot of people that threw darts at him, and they will never relent no matter what he does in his career. And then, obviously, he was a great redemption story, going to McNeese, getting them to a couple of NCAA tournaments, winning an NCAA tournament game, getting the great job at NC State, and then, in the minds of many, the villain reared his ugly head again, leaving NC State after just 1 year to return to LSU, the place that fired him for cause. This is the type of stuff that you would typically only see in a movie. And yes, there are a lot of people that love to hate Will Wade. And this is a bad day for them because it's been more than a month since Will Wade returned to Baton Rouge. When he was introduced amid much fanfare, flames shooting in the sky at the PMAC, a drum line bringing the general back, Mike the Tiger dressed up in an Army general suit, Will Wade with Mumford & Sons, I Will Wait for You, blaring, walking with his family triumphantly onto the floor of the PMAC, being introduced in a pep rally-style press conference. Yes, LSU fans loved it. The rest of college basketball, by and large, hated it. That's been more than a month. And since then, Will Wade has added one player. One. Publicly. Despite all the reports of a $12 to $15 million roster and the investment LSU is going to make in this basketball team, Will Wade has one player, Mo Diabate, via the portal. One. And it turns out, however, it's only one we know about. Will Wade was a guest on John Rothstein's podcast, and Rothstein asked about the low volume of players on the roster, just the one transfer, and Will had an answer.
Low volume in terms of what you guys know. We got 7 or 8 guys, so we're not too worried. We've got some good guys. Look, for a bunch of reasons, we're not announcing things. Some guys are still playing in the playoffs. There's a lot of different things going on. So look, by the day school starts, we'll have a real good team. And that's all that matters is by the end of August, we'll have a great team that can compete with just about anybody in the SEC and anybody nationally.
So there you have it. 7 or 8 players already on the roster. Let's make sense of that because there's some of what I think people have forgotten. So number one, you have Mo Diabate on the roster. Okay, Diabate, SEC basketball fans know, largely a sixth man, began his career at Bama where he spent 2 seasons. This past year was at Kentucky, went back into the portal. Now he'll be at his third SEC school in 4 years. Here was Wade, by the way, on that podcast on Mo Diabate.
He's just a winner. You look at the comments from Coach Oates at Alabama, how they missed him, and you look at the comments during the season from Coach Pope at Kentucky and just the mentality that he brings. He's a hard-playing guy. He can play multiple positions. I think his shot's got a lot of upside. We're going to work on that with him this summer. But he's a great person, really, really hard worker, and he's somebody that's going to be, help lay the foundation for your program, be a cornerstone of your program and what you're doing. So we're very, very, excited about him.
So there is Will talking about Mo Diabate. Now, remember also, right, this is kind of how you can make sense of the 7 or 8 that Wade's talking about, okay? So you've got Mo Diabate out of the portal. Remember, this is what other people have forgotten. Marcus Vaughns is already enrolled. So Marcus Vaughns comes to LSU from Australia, the NBA Global Academy. He's a small forward, 6'8", 215. So he's already enrolled. So Diabate and Vaughns, that makes 2. And then you've also got Kevin Thomas, who is he's out of Lauderdale, and he signed his letter of intent. So he's coming in from the high school ranks, 6'6", 195, small forward, a 4-star, and ranks number 79 nationally. So right there, you're talking about 3 already. The other players that have been rumored, there's Salud Nyang. Now, Salud Nyang is from Senegal, who is playing professionally right now in Italy. There was a report a week ago that LSU is about to land Nyang. Now, that hasn't been confirmed by LSU or Nyang, and his team is still playing professionally. So maybe a little bit of what Wade was talking about there. We'll come back to that in a second. But there was also a report from Republica, an international or a foreign news outlet, that LSU would have to pay a $500,000 contract buyout to get Nyang out of his contract there in Italy. He was a draft and stash guy. He was selected 58th overall, so in the back of round 2 by the Cleveland Cavaliers. They drafted him, sent him overseas for development. So he's been playing for Italia. And then the other report from Republica is that LSU is offering him a $7 million deal. Now, I cannot verify that. I do not know that number is accurate. That is a reported number by an international media outlet, that it would be a $7 million deal for Nyang. Again, just remember that number, so I'll come back to it. But again, do not have that confirmed. So Diabate, Vaughns, Kevin Thomas, Nyang, that's 4. And then Alan Graves is the other interesting one. Remember Alan Graves from Ponchatoula? His brother Marshall Graves played at LSU. Well, Alan spent his freshman year this season at Santa Clara, and he was the West Coast Conference Freshman of the Year. He's the one who hit what would have been the game-winning shot in the NCAA tournament game against Kentucky before Kentucky had their own miracle shot to buzzer beater to win that game. So Graves, a lot of mock drafts out there have Alan Graves as a first-round pick. Maybe not a lottery pick, but a first-round pick. And remember, in the NBA, first-round picks are guaranteed 2-year contracts. So Alan Graves effectively has a decision to make. He has declared for the draft, but he has also entered the transfer portal. And he is reportedly down to either Duke or LSU. There is a report that Duke has offered Alan Graves $4 million. I have been told, and I have no problem reporting this, that LSU would match whatever Duke offers Alan Graves. So if Duke is offering $4 million, as is reported, LSU would match that $4 million. Let's say hypothetically you get Nyang and Graves. I don't know if that'll happen. Right there, that's 5. Right there, that's 5 already. So it's not really a stretch to think that they could already be at 7 or 8 players, depending on how things play out. Now, I also told you that 2 Saturdays ago, I was at the NILSU Max Gala at the LSU indoor facility. And Will Wade was not there. A lot of the coaches were. Lane Kiffin was there. The football staff was there. Kim Mulkey, Jay Clark, lots of coaches, administrators. Will Wade wasn't. And there was basketball staff there, by the way. And so I was asking, well, where's Will? And I was told he was recruiting in Istanbul. So very clearly, Will Wade has an international focus for this roster. Nyang would sort of speak to that. Of course, as I just mentioned also, when we talk about Marcus Vaughns from the NBA Global Academy in Australia, and that's what Will Wade told John Rothstein on the podcast as well.
This year I'm going to lean a little heavier on the international route. This is the last year that a lot of kids over there are going to be eligible, some of the older kids, because of the clock issues.
Yeah.
Just those kids have a lot of experience. There's just some natural things that they've learned over there that really help in college basketball and can translate to us in college basketball. And so we're going to do that. We're going to certainly get some of the best guys we can from the transfer portal. We've gotten a couple already, and we're going to try to get a couple more, but we're going to supplement that with some overseas guys.
So we'll talk there about being a heavily international basketball roster. So you're going to have a veteran roster and guys who've been playing professionally internationally. You're going to be an older, more veteran roster. He also spoke about another mistake he made building his first roster at NC State and how it's going to be different at LSU. I'll get to that and a little more detail about why he chose to come back to the SEC, leaving the ACC. You'll hear that next as we continue. It is Locked On LSU, your team every day. The NBA playoffs are here, and every possession matters. If you're looking to get even closer to the action, FanDuel has a great offer to get you started. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. That's right. Turn $5 into $150 in bonus bets just for getting started. Now, I like using FanDuel during the playoffs because everything I need is right there in one place. You can check stats, trends, matchups before making your picks, which makes the whole experience feel a lot more informed. Whether you're looking at player props or just following your favorite stars, it adds another level of excitement to every game. It's a really easy app to navigate. Also, it makes playoff basketball even more engaging from start to finish. So head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game. We're going to dive back into the mistake Will Wade said he made at NC State and wants to correct. But you can get Locked On LSU ad-free with the Everydayer Club, plus members-only Discord access. So make sure you join at the link in the show notes. So again, Will Wade is on John Rothstein's podcast and was going through a lot. That he's got 7-8 guys already on this roster, so silent commitments, and that this is going to be a more international roster. But Will Wade also discussed a roster mistake he made last season in his first year at NC State that he's not going to repeat in his first year at LSU.
The thing that we did last year that I made a mistake on was, we basically paid 11 guys when we went out and got 11 guys and had a lot of depth. And depth's really important for practice. It's not as important for games when you're only playing 7 or 8 guys, 9 max. And so we had some dead money on the roster, so one thing I'm focusing on here is we're really going to pay 7 or 8 guys at LSU this year. And we'll fill out the back half of the roster with some guys who could help us in a pinch. But we want to put our resources into those main guys.
Okay, so let's go through what I told you about the numbers for 2 guys. Salud Nyang, and again, he's not publicly committed to LSU, but the report is $7 million, okay, for Nyang. And there's another report, as I've been told, is $4 million that is the offer Duke has for Allen Graves that LSU would match. If those numbers are accurate, again, and we're playing a hypothetical, nothing is on the record that's been said by anybody associated with LSU or Will Wade or any of these players, but this is what's being reported, okay? So $7 million for Yang and $4 million for Graves. That's $11 million, okay? Now, some of those reports when Will Wade first came on, 3 was one. I believe it was Nako said on 3 who had it, that LSU was committing to Will Wade a $12 to $15 million roster. Now, I had Heath Schroyer in studio on my radio show and asked him point blank about the 12 to 15 million and if a number was guaranteed, and he unequivocally denied that it sounds like they're willing to do what they have to do to be competitive, whatever that number looks like, but nobody's saying that on the record. But even if you want to play in that range, okay, so Will Wade's telling you that last year at NC State, they paid 11 guys. And this year, they're not going to do that. They're going to pay 7 guys, okay, maybe up to 9. You have 7 to 9 guys that actually contribute, so you're going to pay 7. Well, if you have $11 million invested in 2 guys, in Yang and Graves, hypothetically, okay, then if you're in that 12 to 15 range on the high end, that leaves you another, let's call it $4 million for 5 players. So you can be real. You can do the math and understand that you're talking about maybe having another $1 million player on the roster, some guys at half or 3/4 and you can build a really competent roster of 7 players that are getting paid, that are going to be your contributors, that are all making really good money. That's assuming the number on Yang and Graves is accurate. Maybe it's less than that. Who knows? So you can see how that could actually make sense, and how you can piece together to where the money, the finances of that roster build for Will Wade makes sense. It's also really fascinating because every coach in every sport in this era is having to learn how to build a roster, right? LSU football a year ago went ham in the transfer portal and had the number 1 portal class. And as it turned out, like, they still went 7-6. They missed on a bunch of guys and it just didn't work out. Lane Kiffin comes in. That number is north of $40 million. They didn't do a ton of roster retention. They identified 3 guys on both sides of the ball they wanted to retain and then went and built their roster via the portal. We'll see if that's sustainable. Baseball obviously is different as well. Jay Johnson went heavy in the portal, did not focus much on retention. And as a result, I think that was probably a mistake. That probably changes this year. So all that to say, the mistake Will Wade made on a team, by the way, that made the NCAA tournament, he's learned that lesson and isn't going to repeat it year 1 at LSU. So in many ways, they're building the bridge as they cross it, so to speak, in this era. So the mistake Will Wade learned with a lot of resources at NC State, he won't repeat at LSU with how he's going to build this roster, at least in year one, with some international guys and not paying 11 guys and then having guys that's basically just dead money, guys on the end of the bench that you pay to be there that aren't actually doing much for you. Now, I thought it was also interesting hearing Will Wade. This is the first time on this podcast that Will has spoken really at length since his introductory press conference. He hasn't really done media since that introductory press conference. So he does this long form interview with John Rothstein, and with the dust having settled a little bit now and having a little time for reflection, he also talked about what he thinks he can achieve in the SEC that he couldn't in the ACC.
Look, NC State's a great basketball job as well. It was tough to leave there. But I think at LSU with the SEC, we just have more resources just because of the revenue that's generated through our basketball and football contracts. And so I think that we have the ability to compete with the best in the SEC. When you compete in the best of the SEC, you got the opportunity to compete nationally. You look at the number of bids that the SEC has been getting every year with the tournament expanding. I mean, probably all but one or two teams every year is going to, we got 16 teams, probably 13, 14 of them are going to get in every year now. It's somewhere I'm familiar with. It's not somewhere where I have to go meet people. And usually it takes 18 to 24 months to get your hands around everybody, get your hands around everything. I've been able to expedite that process by being back here at LSU.
And by the way, the ACC this past year had 8 teams in the NCAA tournament. That's half of the SEC's league number of 16. And so if you're Will Wade saying 14 SEC teams are going to make the tournament, which happened 2 seasons ago, then yeah, you do have a higher percentage of the teams in the conference making the tournament. But this is also a much tougher SEC than Wade was in the last time, and he knows.
Well, we're about to find out. I mean, I think it's a great league. I think it's really, really tough. Obviously, Florida has been the bell cow the last couple of years, and so look, we've got Alabama's been extremely consistent. We've got some work to do, but that's what we embrace. That's what we want to be. SEC is the toughest conference in the country. It just means more, as I said earlier, and so it's our job to build a program that doesn't play in front of the kids on Wednesday at the SEC tournament. We want to be where we're in the real deal, and if you can get a team that gets the double bye every year. You're going to win it some years. You're not going to win it other years, but you're always going to be in the NCAA tournament and give yourself a crack at it. So that's our goal and that's our mission, and that's what we're going to make happen here.
The undeniable truth about Will Wade is that everywhere he has been, he has played meaningful basketball in March. It doesn't matter if it's Chattanooga or if it's VCU or LSU or McNeese or NC State. Everywhere Will Wade has been, he plays meaningful basketball in March. And he also talked about his year one expectations, which you're going to hear in just a minute. Stay with us. It's Locked On LSU, your team every day. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill is still sitting open. When the pressure is on and you need the right hire, this is a job for Sponsored Jobs. Indeed, Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for. Skills, experience, location. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And the stat that says it all. In the minute since we've been talking, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed. That's according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now. Support Locked On LSU by saying you heard about Indeed on Locked On LSU. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. 2 more things that you need to know from Will Wade. And I just, I love the way Will Wade approached this whole thing. And knowing Will a little bit from his first go round at LSU and covering those teams, this is a guy, as you probably well know, just from watching him publicly, this is a guy that is not afraid to talk mess, back it up, and is a guy who might troll a little bit. So while LSU has apparently silent commitments, It's been silent, radio silent from the LSU side of things with Will Wade, whereas they could have leaked stories to me and other people about silent commits. They didn't. Why? I think Will Wade really enjoys just basking in a lot of the negativity that comes his way to only slam that trump card he knew he was holding close to the vest on the table. Right, wrong, or indifferent. That's Will. And that's a big reason why LSU fans love him and why a lot of people who aren't LSU fans don't love him. But an undeniable truth also is a gigantic reason why Will Wade is back at LSU is LSU president Dr. Wade Roos and Heath Schroyer, who was the McNeese athletic director, who is now at LSU as an associate athletic director. And Will Wade acknowledges much.
No. I mean, look, you've got to have alignment with your administration, and we've got great alignment. You know, I've worked with those guys before. I've worked with a lot of the other people here at LSU who I'm very familiar with. We've got the chairman of the board, Lee Mallett, who's a good friend and was a big supporter of us at McNeese and is obviously a big supporter here at LSU as well. So when you have that alignment, you know, it gives you an opportunity to do special things, do things that maybe haven't been done here in men's basketball in a long time. And so I was very, very excited about that. But it's very rare that you have your president, your board, your athletic department, you know, Heath and Verge Osbury, our athletic director. It's very, very rare that you have, you know, all of those pieces together. And so very, very fortunate and very, very happy to be back here.
And I am getting very, very used to hearing Will Wade say very, very a lot again. Kind of missed the small things. But listen, he didn't answer the question directly. So as to say, would you be back if those guys weren't there? But it's pretty clear the reason Will Wade left NC State, because many would presume but let me not say many would. It is an objective fact that NC State is a better basketball job than LSU. They have won a national championship in basketball at NC State. They care more about basketball at NC State than at LSU. And a lot of people ask the question, why? Well, why would Will Wade leave NC State? And I've gone through it before. And there's two primary reasons. Number one is the fact that by and large, every human being wants to be liked. Whether it's the thing that drives you or not, nobody wants to be hated. Everyone would rather be liked. And Will Wade nationally is a villain for the reasons we talked about. Whether you believe it or not, like, he is vilified nationally. He is a black hat. He is a villain. Except in Baton Rouge, where he is still accepted, revered, beloved, and welcomed back with open arms. He's a champion here. So that's one. He's coming to a place where he is beloved and appreciated. That was one. And of course, his family loved it too. And I'm not trying to dismiss that at all. Of course, that matters. Like, that's a big part of it. But the other is what he just said there. From Governor Jeff Landry to board president Lee Mallett, who those two were the ones that orchestrated this entire thing. We've talked about it for months now. Like, the Lee Mallett wanted this. They tried to make this happen a year ago, and Scott Woodward stepped in the way of it. It's a part of the reason, not singular, but part of the reason why Scott Woodward isn't the LSU athletic director anymore. Because you had two very powerful people in the governor and Lee Mallett who wanted this to happen. And so they flexed their collective muscle to put the wheels in motion. And then you have Dr. Wade Roos and Heath Schroyer, both of whom Will Wade has a very close personal relationship, who, by the way, are awesome. Like, Dr. Roos I've had the chance to meet him and speak with him a little bit. He's a brilliant man. And he's very authentic, a very authentic man. And then Heath Schroyer, who, I had a chance to spend an hour with in studio, and I've gotten to meet and speak with. He and Will are very close. And Heath is a basketball guy. Remember, Heath spent a quarter century as a college basketball coach. He was the McNeese head coach before becoming the athletic director, and then ultimately was the AD when Will Wade was the coach. So he's a guy that gets administration and college basketball. So you have, as Will was saying, that alignment there which is a lot of reason why he's back. Now, the question is, what can they accomplish? Like, is a national championship possible? I don't know. Like, LSU's been to 3 Final Fours when you talk about 81, 86, 06. They've been to the Final Four. They've never won a game in the Final Four and certainly haven't won a national championship yet in the tournament era. Can that change? Maybe. But first things first, and this was Will Wade talking about his goals for his first year in Baton Rouge.
We want to reestablish ourselves as one of the best teams in the SEC. We've fallen the last couple of years. When we left, we were the second best program in the SEC, and we're not trying to get second. We don't like silver medals, but we want to climb our way back up. We need to climb our way into the top half, then climb our way into the top 4, then get our way to the top. So we got to reestablish ourselves as a team that's competitive in this league and a team that's ready to compete in this league and win in this league. And so that's the goal, and the goal is always to make the NCAA tournament. We've been to 8 out of the last 9 NCAA tournaments across a bunch of different schools, and so we want to keep that. We want to keep that rolling.
8 of the 9 NCAA tournaments where he's been, from Chattanooga to VCU to LSU to McNeese to NC State. The one he missed was his first year in Baton Rouge when they went to the NIT, and of course he had his famous rant against Bob Marlin from Louisiana Lafayette after that year. But Will's not hiding from those expectations. They're paying him a lot of money. They're paying his staff a lot of money. And clearly there's a roster investment here. They brought Will Wade here to play meaningful games in March. And that should absolutely, with this investment, should absolutely be the year one goal. Come Selection Sunday, LSU's name needs to be called. I'm banking on that happening year one and for many years to come under Will Wade at LSU. Hey, thanks so much for joining us here and making us your first listen. If you're listening on your favorite podcast app, please subscribe, rate us, leave a review. If you're on YouTube, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and let a friend know that if they love the Tigers, we got you here every single day. It is Locked On LSU, your team every day.